Thank you for joining me. I'm Nola Simon. I'm your host of the Hybrid Remote Center of Excellence. And today is the first day after Labor Day, and a lot of companies are actually enforcing return to office mandates. And so I wanted to record this. I feel like I've done this before, but I'm thinking that it's worthwhile doing it again. Because one of the first things that happens with a return to office mandate is people shut down the emotions, and the emotions are really important to deal with. And you have to consider how people are feeling, both if you're a leader and if you're actually the individual who's being forced to return to the office for whatever that mandate looks like. As a leader, it's good for you to understand how people are feeling and what the obstacles are, and whether that's financial, whether it's emotional, whether it's caregiving related. There's obstacles, and it's not really just the fact that people have gotten used to things over the last 3 years. Decisions have been made that affect people's lives over those 3 years, and working with some degree of flexibility has really factored into those decisions that people have made. And so there's a perception of loss. And humans are hardwired, it's a neurological fact, to avoid loss. So a lot of this is all about reframing. People are feeling that they've lost something, and you simply just telling them that they have to accept it isn't really going to go over well because, well, feeling lost feels icky. It really doesn't feel good. And it really doesn't matter what you say. It's the story that they tell themselves that matters. Surfacing the emotions and going through why people are feeling like that, how they're perceiving it as a loss will help you understand how you can maybe work with them. And the key is really personalization. If you have the discretion as a manager to tweak the plans as an individual for individual teams, hopefully that gives you more power to be able to shift the stories that people are having. And I tell people, I've been through this. I had to have like a full return to office from 5 days remote to 5 days in person. That was back in 2013. And it was challenging. I had broken my foot. I had difficulty walking. I had difficulty driving, and I wasn't given an option. And my option really was show up or get fired. And that's not really a great option. It was hard on my kids. It was hard on me mentally. It was hard on me physically. And it was obviously more expensive to have to commute than rather go in. And all of those really are current reasons that are still valid. And honestly, the cost has probably even gone up. If you can surface some of that, then maybe you can shift into how you can tweak it a little bit, even if it's just to accommodate on certain days. Say there's events for the kids or something that they have to do personally for whatever individual reason that they have, you can shift their work a little bit. You can let them leave early. You can play with the flexibility, and it's not necessarily so much about location, but like the when and the where of the work. And that can make a difference. And having a manager who's willing to listen and who's willing to put themselves on the line to advocate for what's going to be best for the individuals, as long as it's fair and equitable and you're doing it for everyone, then that can work better for you. Now, the other part is, what is this going to look like in the future? Facing and advocating against a return to office mandate when it's fresh and new and everybody in the company is watching the compliance, it's a hard thing to fight because you're going to draw a lot of attention right off the bat. So strategically, I don't recommend fighting it face on. You want to see how it's going to play out a little bit to figure out how you can maybe work with the system that's in place and where the leniency is going to actually land. Because just because that's what's being laid out right now isn't going to be forever. It's going to morph, it's going to change. Companies are paying attention to what people are saying, how they're feeling, and it may not change immediately. It may not change on the timeline that you want it to. But personally, I faced a 5-day mandate back in 2013, and by 2018, I was down to 1 day. So what is this going to look like in 5 or 10 years from now, right? Because 10 years after I started with this whole process. I'm now a consultant who's advocating and supporting companies design hybrid remote to be in the best interest of the company and their employees, to pay attention to how things are feeling. I'm the expert that's being quoted in the media. I'm the expert that's being consulted by government to really understand how to do this right. Yes, it feels onerous right now, but if you strategically play with it and look at how you can make it work for you, if this is something that you feel strongly about, like I did, it wasn't just for me, it was definitely a benefit for me and my family, but strategically I did all of the work to help the team, to help the larger team, to help the company, to help the industry. And now, as a consultant, because I have a media presence and because I have a fairly large following on social media as well, I have the ability to influence thousands of people and work towards making the future of work a better place, right? Now I'm only one person and I only have a certain reach, but it makes a difference. And at the end of the day, if that's my legacy, I'm really comfortable with that. So if you start thinking about what you can achieve if you have to suck it up right now, and I'm meaning that literally, it sucks. It really does. I've lived through it. If you can deal with it and try to work with your managers to make it at least a little bit easier on you, then what can you achieve by adapting? So that's what I'd like you to think about, both as a leader, if you're listening, because leaders honestly like flexibility as well too. Chances are you're feeling that loss of flexibility yourself, right? But as a leader and as individuals, we all really have to be considerate about how everybody's feeling. And return to office can be a lot better than it's ever been if we're paying attention to the emotions and creating that environment where we feel safe enough to talk about it, to work through that so that we come out with a better result at the end. And that's really psychological safety. Do you have that in your company so you can actually work through it to get a productive solution that's going to lead to a better outcome 5 or 10 years from now? And that's the question that you really want to ask. What is this going to look like 5 or 10 years from now? I'm trying to introduce that into my podcast so you have something concrete to walk away from each episode with, and that's the question for today. Think about the future. All right, thanks for joining. Talk later. Bye.